The morning sun cast long shadows across the military airfield as Dae-ho Kim rolled his wheelchair to the edge of the runway. The metal wheels made soft clicking sounds against the concrete as he positioned himself in his usual spot. From here, he could watch the young pilots practice their maneuvers without anyone bothering him with questions or looks of pity. 3 F-22 Raptors screamed overhead in perfect formation. Their engines roared like thunder, and Dae-ho felt the familiar tightness in his chest. Once, he had been the one up there. Once, he had been the best pilot in the entire Korean Air Force. Now he was just a man in a wheelchair watching others live his dream. The jets banked sharply to the right, executing a textbook barrel roll. Dae-ho shook his head. The pilot was too cautious, too slow on the recovery. In the old days, Dae-ho would have completed that maneuver in half the time. His hands gripped the armrests of his wheelchair until his knuckles turned white. "You are early today," came a gentle voice behind him. Dae-ho did not turn around. He knew that voice. It was So Young, his wife of 15 years. She worked as a communications officer at the base, monitoring radio chatter and satellite feeds. Her shift started at 8, but she always found time to check on him before heading to the communications center. "Could not sleep," Dae-ho replied, his eyes still fixed on the sky. The dreams came back. So Young walked around to face him. She was still beautiful at 38, with kind eyes and a smile that had once made his heart race. Now that smile was tinged with worry, the kind that came from watching someone you love slowly disappear into themselves. "The same dream?" she asked. Dae-ho nodded. It was always the same dream. He was back in the cockpit of the Raptor X-7, the most advanced fighter jet ever built. The controls felt perfect under his hands. The engines hummed with power. Then came the explosion. The searing pain. The helpless fall toward the earth. He always woke up just before impact, his phantom legs screaming with pain that no longer existed. "Dr. Kim wants to see you again," So Young said carefully. "He thinks the new therapy might help." "No more doctors?" Dae-ho said firmly. "They cannot give me back my legs. They cannot give me back my life." So Young knelt beside his wheelchair, placing her hand on his arm. "Your life is not over, Dae-ho. You still have me. You still have Haewon. We need you." At the mention of their daughter, Dae-ho's expression softened slightly. Haewon was 16 now, with dreams of becoming a pilot just like her father had been. She spent hours reading about aircraft and space flight, memorizing technical specifications and flight manuals. It broke his heart to see his own lost dreams reflected in her eager eyes. "She asks about you every day," So Young continued. "She wants to know when you will teach her to fly the simulator again." Before the accident, Dae-ho had been teaching Haewon the basics of flight on the base's training simulators. She had shown natural talent, an instinctive understanding of three-dimensional movement that reminded him of himself at that age. But after the crash, he had stopped the lessons. How could he teach someone to fly when he could barely accept that he would never fly again? The sound of jet engines grew louder as the training squadron returned for landing. Dae-ho watched them approach the runway with the critical eye of someone who had performed this maneuver thousands of times. The lead pilot was coming in too. Fast, fighting the crosswind instead of working with it. "Pull up, you fool," Dae-ho muttered under his breath. The landing was rough but successful. The 3 jets taxied toward the hangars, their engines winding down. In a few minutes, the pilots would climb out, laughing and joking about their training flight. They would head to the briefing room to discuss what went right and what went wrong. Then they would go home to their families, take hot showers, and sleep peacefully. Knowing they would fly again tomorrow, Dae-ho envied them more than he could express. "I should go," So Young said, checking her watch. "But promise me you will think about what Dr. Kim said. The therapy is not about walking again. It is about learning to live again." After she left, Dae-ho remained by the runway for another hour. The base was quieter now, with only the essential morning flights taking off. Maintenance crews worked on the aircraft, checking systems and refueling. Everything continued as it always had, as if the absence of one pilot made no difference at. Oh, but Daeho knew better. 3 years ago, he had been more than just another pilot. He had been special. His reflexes were faster than anyone else's. His understanding of aircraft behavior was intuitive, almost supernatural. Other pilots came to him for advice. Commanders trusted him with the most dangerous missions. He could make an aircraft do things that seemed impossible, dancing through. The sky like gravity was just a suggestion. The accident had happened during a test flight of the Raptor X-7, a prototype fighter with experimental systems that pushed the boundaries of human flight. The official report blamed mechanical failure, but Daeho knew there was more to it. In the seconds before the explosion, he had detected something wrong with the aircraft's computer systems. The controls had responded sluggishly, as if something was fighting against his inputs. The investigation had been classified at the highest levels. Even now, 3 years later, most of the details remained secret. Daeho had been told only that the crash was not his fault, that he had performed heroically in trying to save the aircraft, and that his injuries were regrettable but necessary. Sacrifices for the advancement of military technology. None of that made him feel any better about losing his legs. A young lieutenant approached hesitantly. Daeho recognized him as one of the newer pilots, someone who had probably heard stories about the legendary Daeho Kim. "Excuse me, sir," the lieutenant said nervously. "Are you Captain Kim?" "Former Captain Kim," Daeho corrected. "I am retired." "Sir, I just wanted to say that I studied your flight records at the academy. The mission over the disputed islands, the way you outmaneuvered 6 enemy fighters with a damaged aircraft, it was incredible." Daeho looked at the young man's eager face and felt a familiar mixture of pride and pain. That was a long time ago. "Sir, would you mind if I asked you about the high-G spiral maneuver? I have been trying to master it, but I cannot seem to get the timing right." For a moment, Daeho almost smiled. The high-G spiral was one of his signature moves, a complex maneuver that combined barrel rolls with vertical climbs to confuse enemy targeting systems. It required perfect timing and an instinctive feel for the aircraft's limits. "The key is not to fight the G-forces," Daeho said slowly. "You must work with them. Let the pressure guide your movements instead of trying to overcome it." The lieutenant nodded eagerly, committing every word to memory. They talked for another 10 minutes. About flight techniques and combat tactics. For those brief moments, Daeho felt like himself again. He was sharing knowledge, helping someone improve, making a difference. Then the lieutenant saluted and walked away, heading back to his aircraft and his future. Daeho was left alone again with his wheelchair, and his memories dot as the sun climbed. Higher in the sky, Daeho finally turned his wheelchair around and headed back toward the base buildings. He had physical therapy at noon, an appointment he would probably skip again. What was the point of strengthening muscles that could not carry him where he wanted to go? But as he rolled across the tarmac, something caught his eye. In the distance, barely visible through the heat haze, was the entrance to Hangar 7. It was a restricted area, heavily guarded and marked with signs warning unauthorized personnel to stay away. Inside that hangar, according to rumors, was the wreckage of the Raptor X-7, his aircraft. The machine that had taken his legs and his future. Daeho had never seen the wreckage. He had been unconscious for weeks after the crash, and by the time he recovered, the investigation was over and the hangar was sealed. Sometimes he wondered if seeing it would bring closure. Other times he feared it would only make the pain worse. Today, for the first time in 3 years, he found himself curious about what remained of his final flight. The alarm began blaring at exactly 0347 hours on a Tuesday morning. Daeho woke instantly, his military training overriding 3 years of civilian sleep patterns. The sound was not the usual base alarm. This was the emergency signal that every military person feared hearing. The one that meant Earth was under attack. So Young was already moving, pulling on her uniform with practice speed. Her phone buzzed constantly with incoming messages from the communications center. Through their bedroom window, Daeho could see lights blazing across the entire military base. Vehicles raced between buildings. Personnel ran toward their assigned. Emergency stations, what is happening? Deho asked, transferring himself from the bed to his wheelchair. Unknown contacts in orbit, So Young replied, her voice tight with stress. Multiple large objects appeared above major cities worldwide. They are not responding to any communication attempts. Deho felt ice form in his stomach. For decades, scientists had debated whether humanity was alone in the universe. Today, they had their answer. So Young kissed him quickly before rushing toward the door. Stay inside, keep Hei-1 safe. I will call when I can. After she left, Deho rolled to their daughter's room. Hei-1 was already awake, sitting by her window and staring at the sky. Her young face was pale but determined. She had inherited her father's calm under pressure. Dad, look, she whispered, pointing upward. Deho followed her gaze and felt his breath catch. High above, barely visible against the dawn sky, was a shape that had no business being there. It was enormous, easily the size of a city block, and it hung motionless in the air with no visible means of support. The hull appeared to be made of some dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. How many are there? Deho asked. The news says 12 ships over 12 different cities. Seoul, Tokyo, New York, London, Moscow. All the major capitals. Hei-1's voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly. They appeared at the same time, all at once. Deho reached for his phone and called his former squadron leader, Hyun-woo Lee. The call went straight to voicemail. He tried again with the same result. Every pilot he knew was probably already in the air or preparing for launch. The television in the living room showed chaotic news reports from around the world. Every major news network had broken into regular programming. Reporters stood in city streets, pointing cameras at the massive alien vessels hovering overhead. Government officials gave emergency briefings, urging calm while clearly struggling to hide their own panic. Then the broadcasts changed. A new voice spoke, but it did not come from any human throat. The sound was translated somehow, reaching every television, radio, and communication device on Earth simultaneously. People of Earth, the voice said. It was cold, mechanical, without emotion. We are the Veltar Empire. We have conquered 47 worlds across this galaxy. Your planet has been selected for integration into our empire. Deho and Hei-1 sat frozen, listening to words that would change everything. You have one rotation of your planet to surrender unconditionally. Resistance will result in the complete elimination of your species. Prepare for integration or prepare for extinction. The transmission ended. For a moment, every news channel was silent. Then the chaos began again, but now it had a desperate edge that had not been there before. Deho's phone finally rang. It was So Young calling from the communications center. Deho, listen carefully, she said. Her voice was professional, but he could hear the fear underneath. All military personnel are being recalled to active duty. Even retired personnel with essential skills? What does that mean? It means they might need you. Your experience. Your knowledge of advanced flight systems. I cannot say more over the phone, but be ready. The call ended. Deho stared at his phone, wondering how he could possibly be useful to anyone while stuck in a wheelchair. On the television, military analysts were already discussing Earth's defense capabilities. The numbers were not encouraging. Humanity had nuclear weapons, advanced fighter jets, and missile defense systems. But everything was designed to fight other humans, not aliens with technology that could make city-sized ships hover silently in the sky. Admiral Tae-min Park appeared on screen, giving a live press conference from the Pentagon. He was a strong man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much war. Deho had met him once, years ago, during a ceremony honoring top pilots. We are activating all defense protocols, Admiral Park said. Our combined forces are the finest in human history. We will not surrender to any foreign power, whether they come from across an ocean or across the galaxy. Despite the brave words, Deho could see the worry in the Admiral's eyes. Earth's military was designed to fight on a planetary surface, not in the vacuum of space. Most of humanity's weapons required atmosphere to function properly. The aliens clearly had no such limitations. 6 hours after the first ultimatum, the aliens demonstrated their power. The first target was a military satellite in geosynchronous orbit. One moment, it was transmitting data normally. The next moment, it simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris field. It was there, then it was not. Within minutes, 12 more satellites vanished. Communication networks around the world began failing as the aliens systematically destroyed humanity's orbital infrastructure. They were isolating Earth, cutting off global communications and GPS navigation. Then the first human military response began. Every nation with space-capable missiles fired at once. Hundreds of rockets streaked upward toward the alien ships. Nuclear warheads, conventional explosives, kinetic impactors, everything humanity could throw at the invaders. Daeho watched the launches on television, feeling a surge of pride despite everything. Humanity would not go down without a fight. The alien ships did not even attempt to dodge. As the missiles approached, shimmering barriers appeared around each vessel. The rockets struck these energy shields and simply disintegrated, their explosive power absorbed harmlessly. Energy shielding. Hey, one whispered, just like in the science fiction movies. But this was not a movie. This was real, and humanity's best weapons had just proven completely useless. The counterattack came immediately. Beams of brilliant, purple light lanced down from the alien ships. They struck military bases around the world with surgical precision. Missile launch facilities, air bases, naval yards, command centers. Each beam lasted only seconds, but when the light faded, the targets were gone. Vaporized completely, leaving only perfectly circular craters in the earth. The base where Daeho lived was not targeted, but bases just 50 kilometers away vanished in purple fire. The ground shook from distant explosions. Windows rattled in their frames. They are destroying our ability to fight back, Daeho realized, but they are not killing civilians. They want the planet intact. The alien strategy was clear and terrifying. Eliminate military resistance while leaving the population alive to serve as workers in their empire. It was conquest, not extermination. Admiral Park appeared on television again, this time from a secure bunker. His uniform was rumpled and exhaustion showed in every line of his face. All military units are authorized to engage enemy forces using any means necessary, he announced. This is not a surrender. This is a fighting withdrawal to more defensible positions. Translation: the first phase of the war was already over, and humanity had lost. Fighter jets began launching from every surviving airbase. Daeho watched his former colleagues take to the skies in aircraft that suddenly seemed primitive compared to the alien technology. F-22 Raptors, F-35 Lightning fighters, Korean KF-21 Boromir jets, everything that could fly was thrown into the battle. His phone rang again. This time it was Hyun-woo Lee, his former squadron leader. Daeho, thank God you are alive, Hyun-woo said. The connection was poor, filled with static and interference. I am leading Strike Package Alpha against the ship over Seoul. 18. Aircraft are best pilots. Hyun-woo, those energy shields destroyed nuclear missiles. Conventional weapons will not work. Maybe, but we have to try. We have to do something. There was a pause, filled with the sound of jet engines. Daeho, if we do not make it back, I want you to know that you were the best pilot any of us ever flew with. You would have found a way to hurt these things. The connection went dead. Daeho rolled his wheelchair to the window and looked up at the alien ship hovering over Seoul. Even from this distance, it looked impossibly large and threatening. Somewhere up there, his friends were about to die in a hopeless attack against an enemy they could not possibly defeat. For the first time in 3 years, Daeho Kim wished he could fly again, not for himself, but for them. For all of them. Battle was about to begin, and humanity was going to lose. The attack on Seoul lasted exactly 17 minutes. Daeho watched from his window as 18 of humanity's finest fighter jets streaked toward the alien mothership. The aircraft looked like tiny insects approaching a massive building. Their Missiles and cannon fire sparkled harmlessly against the energy shields. Like raindrops hitting an umbrella, the alien response was swift and merciless. Purple beams lanced out from the ship's hull, each one finding its target with perfect accuracy. One by one, the human fighters exploded in brilliant orange fireballs. Daeho counted each death, knowing the names and faces of most of the pilots. Hyun-woo's aircraft was the last to fall. His F-22 Raptor tried a desperate ramming attack, diving straight at the alien ship's bridge section. The energy beam caught him just 50 meters from impact. The explosion lit up the morning sky like a second sun. Then silence returned. The alien ship continued hovering as if nothing had happened. 18 of Earth's best pilots were gone, and they had not even scratched the enemy's paint. Daeho closed his eyes and felt something break inside his chest. These men had been his brothers, his squadron mates, his friends. Now they were dead, and he had been powerless to help them. His phone buzzed with an urgent message from So Young. Emergency meeting at Hangar 7. Come immediately. Bring Hae-won. Hangar 7, the restricted facility where his crashed Raptor X7 was stored. Daeho had never been inside since the accident. Now, apparently someone wanted him there. The drive across the base was surreal. Military personnel ran everywhere, but their movements seemed random and panicked. Half the communication towers had been destroyed in the alien strikes. Emergency vehicles raced between damaged buildings. The smell of smoke and ozone filled the air. Hangar 7 was surrounded by armed guards, but they waved Daeho through when they saw his identification. Inside, the massive building was filled with people he recognized from the highest levels of military command. Admiral Park was there, along with several other generals and government officials. So Young stood near a bank of computer monitors, her face pale with stress, but what drew Daeho's attention was the aircraft in the center of the hangar. The Raptor X7 had been rebuilt 3 years ago. It had been a twisted wreck of metal and ceramic, barely recognizable as an aircraft. Now it looked almost new. The hull gleamed with fresh armor plating. The engines had been completely reconstructed. New weapon systems bristled from hardpoints along the wings. Incredible, Hae-won whispered beside him. It looks like something from a science fiction movie. A woman in a white lab coat approached them. Dr. Miran Choi was the chief designer of the Raptor X7 project, a brilliant engineer who had spent her entire career pushing the boundaries of aerospace technology. She looked exhausted, as if she had not slept in days. Captain Kim, she said, offering her hand. Thank you for coming. I know this must be difficult for you. Why am I here? Daeho asked bluntly. I cannot fly anymore. I cannot help you. Doctor. Choi exchanged glances with Admiral Park, who nodded grimly. Captain, we need to brief you on something that was classified when you had your accident. The Raptor X7 was not just an advanced fighter jet. It was the prototype for something much more revolutionary. She led them to a large display screen, showing technical diagrams of the aircraft's internal systems. Daeho recognized most of the components, but some were completely unfamiliar. The X7 was designed with an experimental neural interface system, Dr. Choi explained. Instead of using traditional flight controls, the pilot's thoughts would be directly connected to the aircraft's computer systems. The human brain would become part of the machine. Daeho stared at the diagrams. That is impossible. The human nervous system cannot process that much data. Under normal circumstances, you would be correct. But we discovered that certain individuals have neural patterns that can adapt to machine interfaces. The process requires a complete merger of human consciousness with artificial intelligence. Admiral Park stepped forward. Captain, your brain scans from before the accident show you have the exact neural structure we need. You are the only person we have found who can interface with this system. What are you asking me to do? Daeho's voice was quiet, but Hae-won could hear the tension in it. Fly again, Dr. Choi said simply. Not with your hands or your feet, but with your mind. The neural interface bypasses all physical controls. Your disability would not matter. In fact, it might be an advantage. She pulled up another screen showing brain scan comparisons. When you lost your legs, your brain rewired itself to compensate. The areas that once controlled your lower body have been repurposed for enhanced spatial reasoning and three-dimensional thinking. Your mind now processes movement in ways that intact humans cannot. Deho felt his heart racing. The possibility of flying again, of being useful again, was almost too much to hope for. But he forced himself to ask the hard questions. What happened to my original test flight? Why did the X-7 crash? Dr. Choi hesitated. The neural interface was not ready 3 years ago. When you tried to use it, the system overloaded. The computer tried to merge with your consciousness too quickly, causing the aircraft systems to malfunction. You mean I crashed because the machine tried to take over my brain? In simple terms, yes. But we have spent 3 years perfecting the interface. We know how to make it work safely now. Admiral Park moved closer. Captain, I will not lie to you. This is dangerous. The neural merger process has never been fully tested on a human being. We estimate a 60% chance of success. And if it fails? Brain death, Dr. Choi said bluntly. The neural interface could destroy your consciousness completely. The hangar fell silent. Everyone waited for Deho's response. He looked at the rebuilt Raptor X-7, then at his wife and daughter. So Young's eyes were filled with tears, but she nodded slightly. She understood what he was thinking. How long do we have? Deho asked. The aliens are systematically destroying our military infrastructure, Admiral Park replied. Intelligence estimates we have less than 48 hours before they demand our final surrender. After that, they will begin eliminating population centers. HFY spoke up for the first time. Dad, 18 pilots just died trying to fight those ships with regular aircraft. If this neural interface thing can give you an advantage, maybe it is worth the risk. Deho looked at his daughter with surprise. She sounded so much older than her 16 years. There is something else you should know, Dr. Choi continued. The aliens are using predictive artificial intelligence to counter our attacks. Their computers analyze human behavior patterns and anticipate our tactics. That is why conventional attacks have been so ineffective. But a pilot merged with an AI system would think differently, Deho realized. The aliens would not be able to predict a hybrid human-machine consciousness? Exactly. You would not be flying like a human pilot following predictable patterns. You would be something entirely new. So Young walked over and took Deho's hand. Whatever you decide, I will support you. But remember that you have already given enough for your country. No one could blame you for saying no. Deho closed his eyes and thought about Hyun-woo and the other pilots who had died that morning. He thought about the millions of people living under the shadow of the alien ships. He thought about his daughter's future in a world ruled by conquerors. When he opened his eyes, his decision was made. How long will the preparation take? He asked. Dr. Choi smiled for the first time since he had arrived. The neural surgery and interface installation will require 8 hours. Then we need 12 hours for system integration and testing. If we start now, you could be ready to fly by tomorrow evening. Then let us begin. Admiral Park stepped forward and saluted. Captain Kim, on behalf of the human race, thank you. As the medical team began preparing for the most dangerous surgery in human history, Deho looked once more at the Raptor X-7. Tomorrow, he would either save the world or die trying. For the first time in 3 years, those felt like acceptable odds. The surgery began at midnight in a sterile white room deep beneath Hangar 7. Deho lay on the operating table while Dr. Choi and her team prepared to drill holes in his skull. The neural interface looked like a spider made of metal and fiber. Optic cables. Soon it would be permanently attached to his brain. Are you ready, Captain? Dr. Choi asked through her surgical mask. Deho nodded. So Young and HFY had been allowed to see him before the anesthesia. His wife had kissed his forehead and whispered that she loved him. His daughter had simply said, "Bring them down, Dad." The anesthesia took effect, and Deho drifted into darkness. While he slept, the world continued burning. Cities across Earth reported alien ships taking positions over key infrastructure. Power plants, water treatment facilities, communication hubs. The message was clear. Resistance would be met with the complete collapse of human civilization. But in the underground bunker, a different kind of war was being fought. Dr. Choi worked with microscopic precision, inserting neural filaments into specific regions of Daeho's brain. Each wire was thinner than a human hair but capable of carrying millions of data packets per second. The interface had to connect to his motor cortex, his visual processing centers, and the mysterious areas that controlled spatial reasoning, neural. Pathway Alpha is connected, reported Dr. Song, her chief assistant, reading normal brain activity. Good, beginning connection to Pathway Beta. The surgery took 9 hours instead of 8. There were complications when Daeho's brain tissue reacted unexpectedly to the foreign implants. For 30 minutes, his vital signs became erratic, and Dr. Choi feared they might lose him on the table, but Daeho was stronger than they expected. His body adapted to the neural interface like it had been waiting for this moment his entire life. When he woke up, the world looked different, not visually, but somehow he could sense electronic devices around him. The heart monitor beside his bed felt warm and alive like a small animal. The computer controlling his IV drip hummed with electrical activity that he could almost hear. "How do you feel?" Dr. Choi asked. "Strange," Daeho replied honestly. I can feel the machines thinking. That is normal. Your brain is learning to interpret electronic signals as sensory input. The feeling will become stronger as we begin the integration process. Over the next 12 hours, they slowly increased the interface's sensitivity. Daeho learned to sense data flowing through computer networks. He could feel the pulse of electrical current in the walls. Most importantly, he began to connect with the Raptor X7's onboard computer. The first connection was overwhelming. The aircraft's AI system was incredibly complex, with thousands of subsystems all running simultaneously. Engine management, weapons, targeting, flight controls, defensive systems. Everything flooded into Daeho's consciousness at once. He screamed and pulled away, his mind unable to handle the massive data flow. "We are pushing too hard," Dr. Choi said, adjusting the interface settings. "We need to increase the connection gradually." The second attempt was gentler. Instead of trying to access all systems at once, they connected Daeho to just the aircraft's basic sensor array. Suddenly, he could see through the Raptor X7's cameras, feel air pressure on its hull, sense the magnetic fields around the hangar. It was like growing new senses he never knew he needed. "This is incredible," he whispered. "I can feel the aircraft breathing." "Breathing?" Dr. Choi looked confused. "The air moving through its systems, the fuel flowing through its veins. It feels alive." Outside the bunker, the situation continued to deteriorate. The alien ships had begun landing troops in major cities, not many, just enough to show their power. The soldiers were tall and thin, wearing armor that seemed to be made of the same energy that powered their shields. They moved through human populations like tourists, studying Earth's people and resources. Reports came in from around the world. The aliens were cataloging everything: population numbers, industrial capacity, natural resources, technological development. They were preparing for the complete integration of Earth into their empire. Admiral Park visited Daeho during his recovery. The old military commander looked exhausted, like he had aged 10 years in the past 2 days. "How are you feeling, Captain?" "Like half of my brain is not human anymore," Daeho answered. "But I think it is working. When I close my eyes, I can sense the Raptor X7 even from here. Its engines, its weapons, everything. We are running out of time. Satellite intelligence shows the alien ships are preparing for something big. We think they are about to issue their final ultimatum." Daeho nodded. "How long until I can fly?" "Dr. Choi says you need 6 more hours to complete the neural integration." "But Captain, I need to ask you something. Are you sure you want to do this? The odds of success are very low. Even with the neural interface, you will be 1 ship against 12 alien motherships. Admiral, 18 of our best pilots died yesterday using conventional tactics. If there is even a small chance that this neural interface can make a difference, we have to try. That evening, Junseok Nam arrived to brief Daeho on the Raptor X-7's new systems. Junseok was the chief engineer who had rebuilt the aircraft from wreckage. He was a quiet man with careful hands and an encyclopedic knowledge of aerospace technology. The aircraft is completely different from what you flew 3 years ago, Junseok explained. We have upgraded everything. New engines with 30% more power. Weapon systems adapted from alien technology we recovered from crashed enemy drones. Most importantly, the entire cockpit has been redesigned for neural interface control. He showed Daeho holographic displays of the aircraft's interior. Instead of traditional flight controls, the cockpit now contained a single reclining chair, surrounded by neural interface nodes. You will not touch any physical controls, Junseok continued. Everything will be controlled through thought alone. The aircraft will respond to your intentions before you are even fully aware of them yourself. What about weapons? Plasma cannons adapted from alien technology. They should be able to penetrate enemy energy shields, at least partially. We also have kinetic penetrators designed to exploit weaknesses in their hull design. Daeho absorbed this information while simultaneously feeling the Raptor X-7 systems through his neural connection. The aircraft was indeed alive, in a way that normal machines were not. I was learning from his brain patterns, adapting to his thought processes. So Young and Hae-won visited him one final time before the mission. His wife looked calm, but he could see the fear in her eyes. His daughter seemed more excited than worried. I have been reading about the neural interface technology, Hae-won said. Dad, you are going to be the first human-machine hybrid pilot in history. That is amazing. It is also terrifying, So-young added quietly. Daeho took his wife's hand. If I do not come back, You will come back, she interrupted. You always do. You survived the crash that should have killed you. You survived losing your legs. You will survive this too. As night fell, Dr. Choi performed the final neural calibration. The connection between Daeho's brain and the Raptor X-7 became complete. He could feel every system in the aircraft as if it were part of his own body. The engines were his heart. The sensors were his eyes. The weapons were his fists. The integration is perfect, Dr. Choi announced. Captain Kim, you are ready to fly. But as Daeho prepared for what might be humanity's last hope, reports arrived from around the world. The alien ships were moving into new positions. Energy readings from their hulls suggested they were powering up for a massive attack. Humanity's time had run out, the final battle was about to begin, and Daeho Kim would face it not as a man or a machine, but as something entirely new. Dawn broke over a world under siege. The alien ships had moved during the night, positioning themselves over every major population center on Earth. Their hulls glowed with ominous purple energy, preparing for what could only be a final demonstration of their power. Daeho was wheeled to the Raptor X-7 in the pre-dawn darkness. His body was weak from the surgery, but his mind felt more alive than it had in years. Through his neural connection, he could sense every system in the aircraft humming. With readiness, the cockpit had been completely redesigned. Instead of traditional flight controls, there was only a reclining chair surrounded by holographic displays and neural interface nodes. Mechanical arms helped transfer Daeho from his wheelchair into the pilot's seat, where restraints automatically adjusted to secure him. Neural interface activation in 30 seconds. Dr. Choi announced over the intercom. Daeho closed his eyes as the connection engaged. Suddenly, he was no longer just a man sitting in a machine. He became the machine. Every sensor became his nerve ending. Every weapon system became an extension of his will. The powerful engines felt like a second heart beating in his chest. System integration complete, he reported, though he was not sure if he spoke the words aloud or transmitted them directly through the aircraft's communication system. I am ready for launch. The hangar doors opened, revealing the dark sky above. In the distance, the alien mothership over Seoul hung like a malevolent star. its hull crackling with energy barriers that had proven impenetrable to conventional weapons. "Raptor X-7, you are cleared for takeoff," came Admiral Park's voice. "Captain Kim, the hopes and prayers of humanity go with you." Daeho did not respond with words. Instead, he simply thought about rising, and the aircraft lifted smoothly into the air. The sensation was unlike anything he had ever experienced. It was not like flying a machine. It was like becoming a bird. The Raptor X-7 climbed rapidly through the atmosphere, its new engines providing incredible acceleration. Through the aircraft's sensors, Daeho could perceive his surroundings in ways no human pilot ever had. He could see magnetic fields, sense radio transmissions, feel the gravitational pull of the moon and distant planets. As he approached the alien mothership, warning alarms began sounding in his consciousness. The enemy vessel was scanning him with some kind of targeting system. Energy readings spiked as weapons arrays powered up. The first attack came without warning. A massive purple beam lanced out from the mothership, the same weapon that had vaporized human fighters with single shots. But Daeho was no longer thinking like a human pilot. His enhanced spatial awareness showed him the beam's path before it fired, and he simply was not there when it arrived. The aliens fired again, this time with multiple beams converging on his position. Daeho responded by doing something no human pilot could ever attempt. He flew in 4 directions simultaneously, his consciousness splitting to control multiple flight paths at once before merging back into a single trajectory that threaded between the energy beams like a needle through cloth on the alien bridge. Commander Velkar watched the human aircraft's impossible maneuvers with growing confusion. His tactical computers could not predict the enemy pilot's behavior. Every algorithm designed to anticipate human flight patterns failed completely. "Analysis of enemy pilot behavior?" he demanded from his tactical officer. "Unknown, Commander. The human craft moves without following any recognizable pattern. It defies our understanding of human psychology and physics." Daeho continued his attack approach, but instead of flying directly at the mothership, he began using the environment itself as a weapon. He dove toward Earth's atmosphere and used the planet's magnetic field to accelerate beyond the capabilities of his engines. He slingshot around a communications satellite, adding its orbital velocity to his own. The aliens had never encountered anything like this. Their experience was based on conquering species that thought in predictable patterns. They had weapons to counter every known form of attack, shields to stop every type of weapon. But they had no defense against an enemy that thought like both machine and man. Simultaneously, Daeho's first attack run targeted the mothership's shield generators. His new plasma cannons, adapted from alien technology, fired in patterns that his hybrid consciousness calculated in real time. Instead of trying to overpower the energy shields, he looked for resonance frequencies that would disrupt their harmonic structure. The shields flickered and failed for exactly 0.3 seconds. In that brief window, Daeho fired a kinetic penetrator that punched through the hull and destroyed one of the ship's primary power conduits. For the first time in the invasion, an alien ship had been damaged. Commander Velkar's bridge erupted in alarm signals. "Impossible! Our shields are impenetrable to primitive human weapons. Commander, the human craft used our own shield frequency against us. Somehow, it calculated the exact resonance pattern needed to create a harmonic disruption." Velkar studied the tactical display with new respect. This was not a human pilot. This was something else. Something they had never encountered in their conquest of 47 worlds. Daeho pressed his attack, but now the aliens responded with everything they had. Energy beams filled the space around him like a deadly light. Missile-like projectiles tracked his movements with advanced guidance systems. The mothership's smaller escort craft launched to surround him, but Daeho's hybrid consciousness was learning faster than the aliens could adapt. Each attack pattern they used, he analyzed and countered. When they fired energy beams, he used his enhanced spatial reasoning to find safe paths between them. When they launched missiles, he calculated their guidance systems' limitations and exploited them. More importantly, he began to understand how their technology worked. Through his neural interface, he could sense the electromagnetic signatures of their weapons and shields. The alien technology operated on principles that human science barely understood, but his machine-enhanced mind could perceive patterns that pure human intelligence never could. He realized that all their ships were networked together, sharing tactical data through quantum communication links. If he could disrupt those links, the alien fleet would lose its coordination advantage. Deho began targeting the quantum communication arrays on each mothership. It required precise attacks that conventional pilots could never attempt. He had to calculate quantum frequency patterns while simultaneously evading weapons fire from 12 different ships, but his hybrid consciousness could handle tasks that would overwhelm any human mind. Part of him flew the aircraft while another part calculated targeting solutions and a third part analyzed enemy response patterns. He was fighting the battle on multiple levels of reality simultaneously. One by one, the quantum communication links began failing. The alien ships started making tactical errors as they lost the ability to coordinate their attacks. Ships fired on positions where Deho had been instead of where he was going to be. Commander Velkar watched his perfect battle coordination dissolve into chaos. How is one primitive pilot defeating our entire fleet? His tactical officer had no answer. The human craft continued its impossible dance through space, striking precisely where the aliens were weakest and never being where they expected it to be. As the battle continued, Deho felt something unexpected. The Raptor X7's AI was not just following his commands. It was learning from his thought patterns and beginning to think alongside him. Human intuition was merging with machine logic to create something entirely new. Together, they began the final phase of the attack. Instead of trying to destroy the alien ships, Deho would do something much more devastating. He would turn their own technology against them. The final phase of the battle began when Deho stopped trying to fight the aliens and started trying to understand them through his neural interface. He could sense the electromagnetic patterns that controlled their technology. Every alien ship operated on quantum frequencies that his hybrid consciousness could perceive like colors or sounds. The energy shields, the weapon systems, the propulsion drives, everything depended on precise quantum harmonic patterns, and patterns could be disrupted. Deho dove toward the Earth's magnetosphere, using the planet's natural magnetic field to charge his aircraft systems beyond their normal limits. The Raptor X7 groaned under the stress, but its hybrid pilot pushed it far beyond what any human engineer thought possible. As he climbed back toward the alien fleet, Deho's enhanced mind calculated something that would have taken human scientists years to figure out. The alien motherships were not just individual vessels. They were components of a larger machine, all connected through quantum entanglement fields that allowed instantaneous communication across vast distances. If he could access those quantum fields, he could do more than disrupt their communications. He could reprogram their entire fleet. Commander Velkar watched the human aircraft approach his flagship with growing alarm. His weapons officers had fired everything they had, but the enemy pilots seemed to exist in multiple places at once, always avoiding their attacks by impossible margins. "Commander, the human craft is emitting some kind of quantum signature," his science officer reported. "It appears to be attempting to interface with our ship's control systems. Impossible. Our quantum encryption is mathematically unbreakable." But even as Velkar spoke, warning alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The human pilot was not trying to break their encryption. Instead, he was using their own quantum entanglement network to spread a virus-like program throughout their fleet. Deho's consciousness expanded through the alien network like wildfire. His human intuition guided him through logical pathways that pure artificial intelligence could never navigate, while his machine components processed data at speeds no biological brain could match. Together they rewrote the alien ship's control systems from within. The first sign of success came when the energy shields around the Sol mothership flickered and failed. Then the weapon systems powered down. Within minutes, the massive vessel began descending toward the Earth, its anti-gravity systems disabled. What is happening? Velkar demanded. The human has somehow gained access to our entire network. He is systematically shutting down our ship's primary systems. Across the globe, the same scene repeated. Alien motherships over London, New York, Tokyo, and Moscow lost power and began emergency descents. Their advanced technology, which had made them seem invincible, became their weakness when turned against them. But Deho was not finished. Through the quantum network, he could sense the aliens' home fleet, still approaching Earth from deep space. Hundreds of additional ships carrying millions of soldiers and enough firepower to sterilize the planet completely, his hybrid consciousness made a decision that was both perfectly logical and deeply human. Instead of just disabling the local fleet, he would send the message that the Veltar Empire would never forget. Deho began reprogramming the quantum communication system to broadcast on all frequencies used by the alien empire. His message would reach every Veltar ship, space station, and colony across the galaxy simultaneously. The message was simple but devastating. Complete technical specifications for every alien weapon, shield, and propulsion system. He was given humanity all the knowledge needed to build technology equal to the Veltar Empire. More importantly, he was broadcasting the quantum encryption keys that would allow humans to hack any Veltar ship they encountered. In a single moment, the technological advantage that the aliens had used to conquer 47 worlds was eliminated forever. Commander, Velkar stared at his displays in horror as classified information flooded across every communication channel in the galaxy. Centuries of technological development were being given away to a species that the Empire had dismissed as primitive. Recall all fleets, he ordered. Send the emergency withdrawal signal to all forces approaching this system. His communications officer hesitated. Sir, if we withdraw now, the Empire will consider this mission a complete failure. Your career will be finished. Velkar looked at the tactical display showing human fighters already launching from hidden bases around Earth, armed with weapons adapted from the leaked alien technology. Within hours, humanity would have defensive capabilities that matched or exceeded the Veltar Empire's own. My career is already finished, he said quietly. This species is more dangerous than we thought. They do not just fight with weapons and tactics. They fight with ideas and innovation. We cannot conquer a people who can turn our own technology against us. On Earth, Deho felt the alien fleet withdrawing through his quantum connection. The immediate threat was over, but he knew this was just the beginning. Humanity now had access to technology that would change everything. Within a few years, human ships would be exploring the galaxy, no longer as a primitive species but as equals to any alien empire. His mission complete, Deho began the journey. Back to Earth, the Raptor X-7 descended through the atmosphere like a falling star, its hybrid pilot finally allowing exhaustion to overtake his enhanced consciousness. The landing was perfect, despite Deho being barely conscious by the time the aircraft touched down. The neural interface had pushed his brain beyond its normal limits, and he would need weeks of recovery before the connection could be safely removed. So Young and one were waiting in the hangar when he was lifted from the cockpit. His wife took his hand while medical technicians checked his vital signs. Did we win? He asked weakly. You did more than win, Admiral Park said, approaching with a smile wider than anyone had seen in days. You gave humanity the stars. In the days that followed, as Deho recovered from his ordeal, the world began to change at an incredible pace. The alien technology he had captured was reverse-engineered and improved upon. Within a month, human spacecraft were testing faster than light. Propulsion systems. Within a year, the first human colony ships were leaving the solar system, but perhaps the most important change was in how humanity saw itself. No longer were they trapped on one world, looking up at the stars with wonder and fear. They were a spacefaring species with technology that could challenge any enemy and protect any ally. The Veltar Empire never returned to Earth intelligence. Reports suggested that Commander Velkar had been removed from command, and that the Empire's military doctrine was being completely rewritten to account for species capable of technological adaptation. Deho eventually recovered fully from his Neural surgery, though he chose to keep some of the interface components active. He could still sense electronic systems around him, still feel the flow of data through computer networks. It was like having a sixth sense that connected him to the technological world humanity was building. He returned to teaching, but now his students were preparing to fly ships that could travel between stars. Hey, one was among his first graduates, earning her pilot's license on a craft that used principles adapted from alien technology. On quiet evenings, Daeho would sit in his garden and look up at the stars. They no longer seemed impossibly distant. Thanks to his sacrifice and the courage to risk everything when humanity needed it most, those stars were now destinations rather than just points of light. The man who had lost his legs and thought his flying days were over had given humanity wings to soar among the galaxies, and in doing so, he had found that the greatest victories often come not from what we can do, but from what we choose to do when everything seems impossible.